She didn't raise her voice when she said it. That was what made it cut deeper. Claire Whitmore sat across from her husband, calm and composed, and told him she was leaving him for someone better. Someone with power. Someone who didn't smell like concrete and early mornings. Marcus Hale didn't argue. He didn't ask questions. Because the truth was, Claire believed she had found an upgrade, and she had no idea she was walking away from a man who quietly owned half the city she admired. Welcome to today's story. If you enjoy emotional drama and shocking twists, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. 3 weeks earlier, everything still looked like an ordinary marriage. Marcus Hale woke before sunrise, the same way he always did. No alarm. Just habit. The house was quiet, still wrapped in the early gray of morning. He moved through the kitchen without turning on the overhead lights, poured coffee into a steel thermos, and checked his phone once before slipping it into his jacket pocket. There were 2 missed calls from a number saved only as private office. He didn't return them. Not yet. Outside, his truck sat in the driveway, a dull gray Ford, with a scratch along the passenger side that had never been repaired. It started on the first turn, the engine low and steady. Marcus drove through empty streets while the city still slept, passing glass towers that caught the faintest reflection of dawn. Buildings he knew better than most people ever would. He reached the job site just before 6. The crew was already there, gathered near the temporary fencing, coffee cups in hand. They straightened when they saw him, not out of fear but respect. "Morning." Morning, he nodded once and walked straight to the structure rising from the ground. Steel, concrete, unfinished edges. He studied it in silence, for a moment, eyes moving slowly, taking in details others would miss, a misplaced support, a subtle alignment issue. He didn't announce it. He just grabbed a marker, adjusted the plan, and left instructions clipped neatly to the board. That was how he worked. Quiet, precise, no wasted words. By the time the sun fully broke over the skyline, Marcus had already solved a problem that would have cost the project weeks if left unnoticed. No one made a big deal about it. They just trusted that if Marcus saw something, it mattered. He left the site at 6:30 in the evening, hands still clean, boots worn but steady. The same truck carried him back through traffic now thick with the end of the day. At home, the consternation was immediate. Claire Whitmore was already there, seated at the kitchen island, her laptop open, phone beside her, a glass of wine untouched near her hand. The soft glow of recessed lighting reflected off polished marble and stainless steel appliances. Everything looked perfect. Everything felt distant. "You're late," she said without looking up. Sight ran long. She nodded slightly, but it wasn't agreement. It was acknowledgement without interest. Dinner was quiet. It had been that way for months. Claire spoke about her day, meetings, strategy sessions, a presentation to senior executives. Names Marcus didn't recognize. Positions that sounded important, delivered with a tone that suggested they were. He listened, asked a question when it seemed right. Not because he had to, but because he still believed that listening mattered. At one point, she paused, twirling her fork slowly. "There was an event last weekend," she said. "Daniel Cross hosted it. Downtown. Private guest list." Marcus kept his eyes on his plate. "Sounds like it was something." "It was," she said. A small smile touched her lips. "People who are actually building things were there. Investors, developers, decision-makers." He nodded once. Claire watched him for a second longer than usual. There was something in her expression, not anger, not frustration, something quieter, more final. "You could have been in rooms like that," she said, "if you'd wanted more. I like what I do. That's the problem." The words hung in the air longer than either of them acknowledged. Marcus stood after dinner and began clearing the plates. He washed them, dried them, placed them back where they belonged. The rhythm was familiar, controlled, predictable. Behind him, Claire's phone lit up. She picked it up, glanced at the screen, and her expression changed just slightly. Softer. "More engaged? Work?" Marcus asked without turning. "Something like that," she said. He didn't ask again. Later that Marcus sat alone in the small study at the back of the house. It was the one room Claire rarely entered. Too dark, she had once said. Too old-fashioned. He turned on the desk lamp. Warm light filled the space. His phone buzzed again. Private office. This time, he answered, yes. A pause. Then a voice on the other end, measured and respectful. We need your approval on the Meridian acquisition. The board is waiting. Marcus leaned back slightly in the chair, eyes steady. I'll review it tomorrow, he said. Understood, Mr. Hale. The line went quiet. Marcus ended the call and placed the phone face down on the desk. He didn't move for a moment, just sat there, listening to the silence settle around him. In the other room, he could hear Claire laughing softly at something on her phone, a different tone than she used with him. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. Whatever was shifting between them, it wasn't sudden. It had been building for a long time. He just hadn't stopped it. Down the hall, Claire set her phone aside and stared at the ceiling for a moment. The name Daniel Cross lingered in her thoughts longer than it should have. She told herself it meant something, that it pointed to a life with more clarity, more direction, more. Back in the study, Marcus stood and turned off the lamp. He paused at the doorway, looking out into the darkened hallway of a house that no longer felt entirely shared. He had built his life on patience, on restraint, on letting things reveal themselves in time, but even he could feel it now. Something was coming to a breaking point. The next morning, Claire would make a decision she had already rehearsed in her mind, and when she did, she would believe she was choosing a better future, a stronger man, an upgrade, and Marcus would be sitting across from her, listening in silence. When she finally said the words, "I've already filed for divorce," Claire didn't hesitate. "I've already filed for divorce." The words landed clean. No hesitation, no second thought, just certainty. Marcus stood across from her, one hand resting lightly against the back of the chair he hadn't sat in yet. He didn't react the way most men would. No anger, no raised voice, no sudden questions. Just stillness. Claire noticed that. It irritated her more than anything else. "You're not going to say anything?" she asked. Marcus finally pulled out the chair and sat down across from her. His movements were slow, deliberate, like everything he did. He folded his hands on the table. "You've made your decision," he said. "What is there to argue about?" Claire let out a small breath, almost a laugh, but there was no humor in it. "That's exactly what I mean," she said. "You just accept things. You always have. You never push, never fight for anything bigger. It's like you are fine staying exactly where you are." Marcus held her gaze. He didn't interrupt. "That's not the life I want," she continued. "I've worked too hard to end up stuck. Stuck." The word hung between them. Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Stuck," he repeated. Claire stood, pacing once across the kitchen floor, heels clicking softly against tile. "Look around, Marcus. This house, this routine, it's all small, safe, predictable. You wake up before sunrise, you go to job sites, you come home, you say nothing. There's no growth, no ambition." He listened to every word, not because he agreed, but because he understood exactly how she saw him. "And you think you found something different," he said. Claire stopped pacing. "I have." There it was. "No," Marcus nodded once. Daniel Cross, her eyes flickered just for a second. Then she straightened. "Yes." "How long?" Claire hesitated. Not out of guilt, but calculation. "That doesn't matter. It matters to me," she exhaled, impatient now. "A few months." Marcus absorbed that. The timeline aligned with the late nights, the unexplained events, the shifts in her tone when she talked about work. He had noticed. He had just chosen not to confront it. "He's building something real," Claire continued. "He's not just maintaining structures, he's creating opportunities, expanding. People respect him." Marcus leaned back slightly in his chair. "People respect a lot of things," he said quietly. "That's your problem," Claire shot back. "You don't care about any of it. That's not true." "Then where is it?" she pressed. "Where is your ambition, your drive? You've had chances, Marcus. Promotions, leadership roles. You turned them down. I chose differently. You chose smaller." The word came sharper this time. Marcus didn't flinch. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, heavy but controlled. Claire picked up her glass of wine, took a sip, then set it down harder than necessary. "I'm not going to apologize for wanting more. I'm not asking you to." That stopped her. Claire looked at him, searching for something, anger, maybe, or regret, something that would justify what she had already done. But Marcus gave her nothing. Just calm, just control. It made her uncomfortable. "I've already spoken to an attorney," she said, more firmly now. The paperwork is filed. We'll divide everything fairly. The house, the account. Marcus's eyes moved to her, steady. The accounts, he repeated. Yes, she said. We'll handle it cleanly. No drama. He nodded again, as if considering something deeper than what she was saying out loud. You've already decided what's fair, he said. Claire crossed her arms. I think we both deserve a fresh start. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. You're right about one thing, he said finally. Claire waited. This doesn't need to be dramatic. Something in his tone shifted, not louder, not harsher, but firmer. Controlled in a different way. Claire felt it, even if she couldn't name it. Marcus stood up from the table. I'll have my side review the paperwork, he said. We'll respond through counsel. Her brow furrowed slightly. Your side? Yes. Claire gave a short, dismissive laugh. Marcus, you don't need a whole legal team for this. It's straightforward. He didn't answer that. Instead, he walked to the sink, rinsed his hands slowly, dried them with a towel, and folded it neatly over the counter edge. Routine, precision, control. Claire watched him, irritation building again. You're really going to make this complicated, aren't you? Marcus turned back to her. No, he said. I'm going to make it correct. She frowned. It's a divorce, not a corporate deal. He held her gaze for a second longer than necessary, quietly. Claire shook her head, dismissing it. That's exactly what I mean. You thinkly what I mean. You keep everything contained. Marcus didn't respond, because explaining would change everything, and he wasn't ready to do that yet. Claire picked up her phone again, glancing at the screen. A message flashed briefly. Daniel's name. Her expression softened in a way Marcus hadn't seen directed at him in months. I'm staying at Daniel's place tonight, she said. I'll come back for the rest of my things later. Marcus nodded once. Take what you need. She hesitated. That's it? What else would there be? Claire stared at him for a moment, something unsettled moving behind her eyes. Then she grabbed her bag and walked toward the door. She didn't look back when she left. The door closed with a quiet, final sound. Marcus stood alone in the kitchen, the silence settling around him like it had been waiting. He didn't move immediately. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. The same number called again. Private office, he answered. Yes. Mr. Hale, the voice said. We've been holding the Meridian approval pending your direction. The board is asking if you intend to proceed without delay. Marcus walked slowly back to the table, looking at the empty chair where Claire had been sitting just minutes ago. Proceed, he said. A pause. Understood. Full authorization? Marcus's eyes moved to the divorce papers still lying on the counter. Yes, he said. Full authorization. Another pause. This one. Longer than we'll notify the partners, the voice replied, including cross-development. Marcus's expression didn't change. Do that, he said. He ended the call and set the phone down carefully. Across the city, in a high-rise apartment filled with glass and light, Claire stepped into Daniel Cross's world, believing she had just moved up. She didn't know that the next decision Marcus had just made was about to reach directly into Daniel's business and change everything. Claire stepped into Daniel Cross's penthouse like she was stepping into the life she had always imagined for herself. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across the entire wall, the city glowing beneath them in sharp lines of light. The furniture was clean, modern, expensive without trying too hard. Everything about the space felt deliberate, controlled, important. Daniel stood near the bar, pouring 2 glasses of wine like this was already routine. You made it, he said, smiling in a way that felt effortless. Claire returned the smile, though something inside her still hadn't settled. I said I would. He handed her the glass. Their fingers brushed, and he held her gaze a second longer than necessary. To better decisions, he said. Claire lifted her glass slightly. To better decisions, they drank. For a moment, it felt right. Clean. Like a reset. No silence. No routine. No Marcus standing in the background of her life, quiet and unchanging. Daniel moved easily through the space, confident in a way Marcus had never been. He talked about projects, deals, expansion plans. Names Claire recognized. Numbers she understood. It all sounded like motion, like growth. You ever notice, Daniel said, leaning back against the counter, how some people and decide that's enough? Claire didn't need to ask who he meant. She took another sip. I've noticed. Daniel smiled slightly. That's not you. No, she said. It isn't. He nodded, satisfied with that. Across the city, Marcus was already at the site again, before sunrise. Nothing had changed on the surface. Same truck, same routine, same quiet presence among the crew. But something underneath had shifted. He walked the structure without speaking, eyes scanning the framework, catching problems before they formed. A foreman approached him halfway through the inspection. "Got a call this morning," the man said. "Some people from cross-development are asking about supply timelines. They said they might need priority access." Marcus didn't look up immediately. He adjusted a measurement, marked a correction, then stepped back. "Did they specify which project?" he asked. "Didn't say, just mentioned expansion." Sounded urgent. Marcus nodded once. "Tell them to go through the proper channels." The foreman hesitated. They sounded like they expected flexibility. Marcus met his eyes now. "They don't get flexibility." That was it. The foreman nodded and walked off without another word. Marcus turned back to the structure, but his mind wasn't on the steel anymore. Cross-development. Daniel was moving faster than he should, which meant he was either very confident or very exposed. By mid-morning, Claire was sitting in Daniel's office, watching him take calls that felt larger than anything she had ever been part of. He spoke quickly, assertively. People listened. At one point, he muted the call and glanced at her. "Big week," he said. "We're closing on something that's going to change everything." Claire leaned forward slightly. "What kind of project?" Daniel smiled. "The kind people remember." He unmuted the call before she could ask more. Claire sat back, watching him, admiring him. This was what she had wanted. Not quiet stability, movement, risk, power that didn't hide. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, then opened it anyway. It was a simple notification from her company's internal system. Subject line: Meridian lease renewal. Executive review required. Claire frowned slightly. That wasn't unusual on its own. Her department handled high-level lease strategy. But something about the timing felt off. She opened the email. The details scrolled past quickly: financial terms, timelines, approval chains, standard language, until she reached the bottom. Final approval authority. Pending. Claire paused. That field was usually filled, always filled. She scrolled back up, checking again. Everything else was in place. Legal review completed. Financials approved. Board recommendation submitted. Only one signature missing. She leaned back slowly, her attention shifting. "Something wrong?" Daniel asked, ending his call. Claire glanced up. "Just work." He walked over, resting a hand casually on the back of her chair. "You're still thinking about that place?" She hesitated. "It's a major account." "Not for long," Teal said lightly. "Once we finalize this next deal, we won't be dealing with those mid-tier properties anymore." Mid-tier. Claire almost smiled at that. The Meridian corridor wasn't mid-tier. It was one of the most stable commercial zones in the city. "Who owns those properties anyway?" Daniel continued. "Some old trust, right? No real face behind it." Claire frowned slightly. "I'm not sure," he shrugged. "Doesn't matter. People like that don't move fast enough to keep up." Claire looked back at her phone. Final approval authority. Pending. A small, unfamiliar unease settled in her chest. Back at the site, Marcus stepped away from the structure and into the shade of the trailer. He pulled out his phone and opened a secure message. The Meridian documents were already there. Reviewed. Clean. Ready. He didn't rush it. Instead, he read every line again, slower this time. Not because he needed to, but because this wasn't just another decision. This was a pivot point. He tapped the screen once. A prompt appeared. "Authorize final signature?" Marcus stared at it for a moment. Then he pressed confirm. A second later, his phone buzzed. "Elaine Carter," he answered. "It's done," she said. "The board has been notified. Cross-development is already reacting." Marcus stepped outside, looking over the city in the distance. "How?" he asked. "They didn't expect movement this fast," Elaine replied. "They've been positioning around that corridor for months. Now they're scrambling." Marcus nodded slightly. "Good," he said. There was a pause on the line. "Marcus?" Elaine added, her tone shifting just enough to matter. "You should know, they're trying to trace the approval authority. It's only a matter of time before they start asking the right questions." Marcus's gaze didn't change. "Let them ask," he said. He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Across the city, Claire was still staring at her screen, her fingers hovering over the email. Final approval authority. Pending. Then suddenly, updated. The field filled in. Authorized. No name, just a digital confirmation. Claire blinked. Daniel leaned closer, glancing at the screen. Huh, he said. Looks like somebody finally woke up. Claire didn't answer, because something about that approval felt closer to her life than it should have, and she didn't know why. Claire didn't sleep well that night. The penthouse was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of silence that felt expensive but not comforting. The city lights stretched endlessly beyond the glass walls, but they didn't settle her mind the way she thought they would. She lay awake longer than she expected, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment from earlier. Final approval authority. Authorized. No name. Just a confirmation that someone, somewhere, had the power to move an entire commercial corridor with a single decision. It shouldn't have bothered her, but it did. Beside her, Daniel slept easily, one arm stretched across the bed, breathing steady. He looked like someone who had everything under control. That was part of what had drawn her in. Confidence, direction, movement. Everything Marcus had never shown her. Still, the unease stayed. The next morning, Claire was already dressed before Daniel finished his coffee. She moved through the apartment with purpose, but her mind kept circling back to the same thing, Meridian. Approval. Authority. At the office, the atmosphere had shifted. People were talking, not loudly, not in a way that would draw attention, but enough that Claire could feel it the moment she stepped onto the floor. She stopped near one of the glass-walled conference rooms where two senior managers were mid-conversation. Came out of nowhere, one of them said. Not nowhere, the other replied. Just not where we were looking. Claire slowed her pace slightly. Who signed off on it? The first asked. That's the problem, the second said. No one knows. Claire stepped inside before they noticed her listening. Both of them straightened slightly. Morning, she said. Morning, they replied, but their attention didn't linger on her. It drifted back to the conversation they weren't finishing. Claire walked to her desk and sat down, opening her laptop. The Meridian file was still there. Updated. Final approval authority. Authorized. She clicked into the approval chain, scrolling through the digital signatures again. Legal. Finance. Internal review. External compliance. Everything lined up. Except the final authority. It wasn't missing anymore, but it wasn't visible either. That didn't happen. Not at this level. Her phone buzzed. Daniel, lunch today. I'll show you something. She stared at the message for a second, then typed back. Okay, she needed the distraction. By noon, she was sitting across from him at a restaurant that overlooked the river. The kind of place where deals happened quietly without needing to announce themselves. Daniel looked energized, more than usual. You feel it? He asked, leaning forward slightly. Feel what? Momentum, he said. Things are moving fast. Claire nodded, though she wasn't sure she felt the same thing. He pulled out his tablet, tapping through a set of documents before turning the screen toward her. Warehouse district, he said. This is where everything connects. Once we secure access here, the rest of the city falls into place. Claire scanned the map, highlighted parcels, strategic positioning, long-term projections. It was impressive. Who owns this land? She asked. Daniel hesitated just long enough to notice. An old trust, he said. Complicated structure, no real face. We've been working around it. Claire's eyes moved across the map again. The scale of it didn't feel abstract anymore. It felt controlled. By someone. You're confident you can get it? She asked. Daniel smiled. I don't build projects I can't close. There it was again, confidence. But this time something underneath it felt thinner. Claire leaned back slightly, studying him in a way she hadn't before. And if the owner doesn't want to sell? Daniel's smile didn't fade, but it tightened. F1 has a price, he said. Claire didn't respond immediately, because for the first time she wasn't entirely sure that was true. Back at the site, Marcus stood alone near the edge of the structure, looking out over the skyline. His phone buzzed again. Elaine. They've started asking questions, she said without preamble. Cross's team is trying to trace the authority line. They're pushing through legal channels now. Marcus didn't move. Let them. They're not just asking, she added. They're assuming leverage. They think whoever approved Meridian will be open to negotiation. Marcus's expression didn't change. "They're wrong," he said. "I know," Elaine replied. "But they don't. That was the problem." Marcus ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. He looked back at the structure, at the lines of steel rising exactly where they were meant to. No shortcuts, no assumptions. Everything held because it was built correctly. Across the river in the restaurant, Claire picked up her glass but didn't drink. Daniel was still talking, outlining timelines, expansion phases, investor confidence. But her attention wasn't fully there anymore. "Claire," he said, pulling her back. "You with me?" She blinked. "Yeah, I'm just thinking." "About?" She hesitated, then decided to say it. "Meridian," she said. "The approval, it doesn't make sense." Daniel waved it off. "It's just a delayed sign-off. Happens all the time." "No," she said, more firmly now. "Not like that, not without a name." He studied her for a second. "You're overthinking it," he said. "Focus on what matters. We're moving forward." Claire held his gaze. For the first time, she didn't immediately agree, because something was starting to feel off. Not loud, not obvious, just enough to make her question the certainty she had walked into this with. Later that afternoon, back at her desk, she opened the Meridian file again. This time she went deeper. Access logs. Internal routing, timestamps. Her fingers moved faster now, driven by something she couldn't fully explain. The final authorization had been processed through a secure channel. External. Private. She leaned closer to the screen. There was a routing ID attached, encrypted but not completely hidden. Claire copied it into a secondary system, running a trace the way she had learned years ago. The system hesitated, then returned a partial result. Not a name, not yet, just a reference. Hale Holdings. Claire froze, her hand hovered above the keyboard. Hale. The word sat there, quiet but unmistakable. Her pulse shifted, just slightly, because there was only one Hale she knew well enough to matter, and he had never once mentioned anything beyond his job. Claire stared at the screen, the room around her fading into the background. Then her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A calm, professional voice responded. "Ms. Whitmore, this is Elaine Carter. I represent an entity connected to the Meridian approval. We need to discuss a matter that directly involves you." Claire's grip tightened on the phone. "Involves me how?" she asked. A brief pause. "Because Elaine said you were never supposed to find that name on your own." Claire didn't respond right away. She sat there at her desk, phone pressed lightly against her ear, eyes still locked on the word on her screen. Hale. It didn't feel like coincidence anymore. Ms. Whitmore. Elaine's voice came again. Steady, controlled Claire. Swallowed. "I'm listening." "We need to meet," Elaine said. "In person. Today, if possible." Claire leaned back slightly in her chair, forcing herself to stay composed. "You still haven't explained why this involves me." Another brief pause. "Because you're directly connected to a matter that's about to escalate," Elaine replied. "And because continuing without clarity could put you at a disadvantage." Claire's grip tightened on the phone. "That sounds like a legal warning." "It's a courtesy," Elaine said. Claire exhaled slowly, her mind racing through possibilities, trying to place this in a context that made sense. "Where?" she asked. "I'll send you the location," Elaine said. Discreet. The call ended. Claire lowered the phone but didn't move. Her eyes drifted back to the screen, Hale Holdings. Her pulse picked up again. There were thousands of Hales in the country. That didn't mean anything, except she knew one Hale who had just signed off on something that didn't make sense. Across the city, Marcus sat in the small office trailer at the site, reviewing documents that didn't need reviewing. He already knew the outcome. This wasn't about uncertainty. It was about timing. Elaine stepped inside without knocking, her presence as calm and precise as always. "She's seen it," she said. Marcus didn't look up immediately. "I figured she would." She traced the routing ID herself. That made him pause. Full. He closed the file in front of him slowly. "That wasn't supposed to happen." "No." Elaine agreed. "But it did." Marcus leaned back slightly in his chair, considering. "She's meeting with you?" he asked. "In an hour." He nodded once. Elaine watched him carefully. "Do you want me to contain it?" "No." The answer came too quickly to mistake. "Let it develop," Marcus said. "But keep it controlled." Elaine tilted her head slightly. "You're comfortable with her getting closer to the truth?" Marcus's expression didn't change. "She already is," he said. Stopping it now would raise more questions. Elaine considered that, then nodded. And Daniel Cross? She asked. Marcus's gaze shifted just slightly. He's already reacting, she continued. His lenders are asking questions. Quietly. He's trying to stabilize it, but he doesn't know where the pressure is coming from. Marcus finished. No. Marcus stood, walking to the small window that overlooked the construction site. Workers moved through the structure with purpose, unaware of the larger shifts happening around them. Keep watching him, Marcus said. No interference yet. Elaine studied him for a moment. You're not interested in stopping him early? Marcus shook his head. Not yet, because timing mattered, and so did clarity. Across town, Claire arrived 10 minutes early. The location Elaine had sent was not a law office. It was a private meeting suite inside a business hotel, quiet, understated, designed for conversations that didn't need witnesses. Claire paused outside the door for a moment before knocking. Come in, Elaine's voice called from inside. Claire stepped in. Elaine Carter stood near the table, composed, professional. Everything about her suggesting precision and control. No wasted movement, no unnecessary words. Miss Whitmore, she said. Claire closed the door behind her. You said this involved me. Elaine gestured toward the chair. Please, sit. Claire didn't sit immediately. I'd rather understand first. Elaine didn't push. Fair enough. She picked up a thin folder from the table and opened it. You accessed a restricted routing ID this morning, she said. Claire's jaw tightened. I accessed something tied to my department's work. Elaine nodded slightly. And you followed it beyond your clearance level. Claire held her ground. If something affects my work, I have a right to understand it. Elaine watched her for a second, then closed the folder. You're not wrong, she said. Claire frowned slightly. That wasn't the response she expected. But you are missing context, Elaine continued. Claire crossed her arms. Then give it to me. Elaine stepped closer to the table, her voice still calm. Hale Holdings is not a standard corporate entity, she said. It operates through layered structures. Private trusts, indirect ownership, limited public exposure. Claire felt something tightened in her chest. That still doesn't explain. It explains why you've never seen it before, Elaine interrupted gently. And why most people don't. Claire's mind moved faster now, connecting pieces that didn't quite fit yet. Who owns it? She asked. Elaine didn't answer immediately. Instead, she studied Claire, measuring how much to say. That's not information I'm authorized to disclose directly, she said. Claire let out a short breath. Then why am I here? Elaine slid the folder across the table. Claire hesitated, then opened it. Inside were documents. Not many, just enough. Property summaries, ownership layers. Cross-referenced corporate entities. Her eyes moved quickly, then slowed. Meridian Corridor, Warehouse District, lease agreements. Her company's name appeared more than once. Claire's fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the paper. This is, she started, but the sentence didn't finish. Connected, Elaine said. Claire looked up sharply. To what? Elaine met her gaze. To decisions that are already affecting your professional environment, she said. And your personal one. Claire's heart skipped once. Personal? She repeated. Elaine didn't look away. You were married to Marcus Hale for 12 years, she said. Claire froze. The room felt smaller suddenly. Yes, Claire said slowly. What does that have to do with? She stopped, because the name had already been sitting in front of her. Hale. Her voice dropped, almost without her control. That's a common name. Elaine didn't respond to that. Instead, she reached into the folder and turned one page, a signature line, clean, minimal, not flashy, just a name. Claire stared at it, Marcus Hale. Her pulse surged. No, she said immediately. That doesn't mean anything. He's an engineer, he works. Elaine didn't interrupt. She just let the silence stretch, let Claire hear herself. Claire's breath came faster now. This is a coincidence. Elaine spoke carefully. Miss Whitmore, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. Claire looked back down at the page. Marcus Hale. The same steady handwriting she had seen on birthday cards, on grocery lists, on quiet, ordinary things. Her mind rejected it. It didn't fit. It couldn't fit. Because if it did, then everything she had believed about him, everything she had left him for, was wrong. Claire closed the folder abruptly. This doesn't prove anything, she said, her voice tighter now. You're connecting names. That's all. Elaine nodded once. Then I suggest you ask him yourself. Claire's chest tightened. She hadn't spoken to Marcus since she left. Hadn't needed to. Hadn't wanted to. Now, she wasn't sure she could avoid it. Elaine stepped back slightly. That would be the most direct way to resolve your uncertainty. Claire stood, the chair scraping softly behind her. She picked up her phone. Her thumb hovered over Marcus's name. For the first time since she walked out, she didn't feel certain anymore. Across the city, Marcus's phone lit up on the dashboard of his truck. Claire Whitmore calling. He looked at it. Didn't reach for it. Not yet. The phone kept ringing, and for the first time, Claire was the one waiting for an answer she wasn't sure she was ready to hear. Marcus watched the call ring out. Claire's name stayed on the screen longer than it should have. He could have answered. Nothing was stopping him. Not legally. Not practically. Just timing. He let it go to voicemail. The silence afterward was immediate. He picked up the phone, turned it face down on the dashboard, and stepped out of the truck. The air at the site was cooler than the city, filled with the low rhythm of work already underway. He didn't rush. He didn't react. Because Claire calling now meant one thing. She had started to see something she wasn't supposed to see yet. Across town, Claire lowered her phone slowly. No answer. She stared at the screen for a moment, then tried again. It rang, and again, nothing. Her chest tightened, not with anger this time, but something unfamiliar, uncertainty. She had expected many things from Marcus. Silence wasn't one of them. Not like this. Not when she was the one reaching out. She ended the call and stood still in the middle of the room, Elaine watching her without interruption. He didn't answer, Claire said, almost to herself. Elaine nodded slightly. He usually doesn't respond to pressure. Claire looked up sharply. This isn't pressure. Elaine held her gaze. From his perspective, it is. That hit harder than Claire expected, because for the first time she wasn't in control of the conversation. She wasn't the one deciding when things happened. Claire took a breath, forcing herself to steady. You're implying he knows about this. Elaine didn't hesitate. He knows everything that moves through those structures. Claire's stomach dropped slightly. That doesn't mean. It means, Elaine said calmly, that nothing you've seen today is accidental. Claire turned away, pacing once across the room. Her mind was trying to reconcile two versions of the same man. Marcus, the one who woke up before sunrise, who wore the same worn jacket, who never spoke about money, never pushed for status, and this, a name tied to something that controlled entire sections of the city. It didn't fit. It couldn't. Unless she stopped pacing. Why didn't he tell me, she asked, more quietly now. Elaine didn't answer immediately. Instead, she watched Claire the way someone watches a realization forming. That's a question you should ask him, she said. Claire shook her head. 12 years. 12 years, and he never once mentioned anything like this. Her voice tightened. That's not normal. Elaine stepped closer to the table. Neither is assuming you fully understand someone without ever asking. Claire went still. The words weren't loud, but they landed because she knew. She had never asked. Not really. She had filled in the gaps herself, built a version of Marcus that made sense to her, and lived inside it. Claire grabbed her bag. Where is he? Elaine's expression didn't change. Working. Where? Elaine paused, then reached for a small card on the table and slid it toward her. An address. Claire recognized the area immediately. A construction site. Of course. She didn't say anything else. She just turned and walked out. Across the city, Daniel stood in his office, staring at his phone. Another message, another update. His jaw tightened as he read through it. What do you mean they're reviewing collateral? She snapped into the call. That wasn't part of the agreement. He paced once across the room, running a hand through his hair. No, listen to me. This project is already in motion. You don't get to pull back now. A pause. His expression shifted. Slightly. Not panic. Not yet, but something close. Then I want names, he said. Who's pushing this? Silence on the other end. Daniel stopped pacing. You don't know, he asked, quieter now. Another pause. Then he ended the call without another word. He stood there for a moment, staring out at the city. For the first time, something didn't feel controlled. Back at the site, Marcus stepped away from a group of workers, wiping his hands with a clean cloth before folding it and setting it aside. He moved with the same precision he always had. No wasted motion, no urgency that showed on the surface. But his phone buzzed again. He picked it up this time. Elaine. She's on her way, she said. Marcus didn't ask who. He already knew, he asked. 20 minutes. Maybe less. He nodded once, even though she couldn't see it. Good. There was a brief pause. Do you want to meet her here? Elaine asked. Marcus looked out over the structure, then toward the entrance of the site. Yes, he said. Let her come here. Another pause. You're sure? Marcus's gaze didn't shift. She made a decision, he said. Now she can see where I stand. He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. He didn't prepare. He didn't change anything. Same jacket, same dust on his boots, same man she had walked away from, because that part had always been real. 15 minutes later, a car pulled up outside the site entrance. Claire stepped out. She hesitated for half a second, looking at the structure, the workers, the noise, this place, this version of Marcus. It felt smaller now. Or maybe she just didn't trust her own perception anymore. She walked through the gate, heels slowing slightly on uneven ground. A few workers glanced at her, then looked away. No one stopped her. No one questioned her. That alone felt strange. She moved deeper into the site until she saw him. Marcus stood near the center of the structure, talking to one of the foremen. He turned slightly as she approached. Like he already knew she was there. Their eyes met. For a moment, everything else faded. The noise, the movement, the distance she had created. Claire stopped a few feet away from him. You didn't answer my call, she said. Marcus nodded once. I saw it. That's it? What did you want me to say over the phone? Claire opened her mouth, then closed it again. Because suddenly, this wasn't a conversation she could control. She stepped closer. I went through the Meridian files, she said. I saw the routing ID. Marcus didn't react. I saw the name, she added. Still nothing. Claire's voice tightened. Hale Holdings, that's not a coincidence, is it? Marcus looked at her for a long moment. No, he said. Just that. No explanation. No denial. Claire's breath caught. Her mind tried to push back, to find something that made more sense. You're telling me, she said slowly, that this whole thing is connected to you? Marcus held her gaze. I'm telling you, he said, that you don't actually know what you walked away from. The words hit harder than anything else he could have said. Because there was no anger in them. Just truth. Claire took a step back. For the first time since she left, she felt like she might have made a mistake she couldn't undo. Behind Marcus, one of the foremen approached, hesitating slightly before speaking. Mr. Hale, he said, we've got a call coming in. Private line. They said it's urgent. Marcus didn't look away from Claire. Who is it? He asked. The foreman glanced down at the screen, then back up. Cross-development, he said. Claire froze. Marcus's expression didn't change, but the timing was no longer a coincidence. Claire didn't move. Cross-development. The name hung in the air like something heavier than it should have been. Marcus finally shifted his gaze, turning slightly toward the foreman. Put it through, he said. The foreman nodded and stepped away. Claire's pulse picked up. You're taking that call? Now? Marcus looked back at her. Why wouldn't I? Because she stopped, her thoughts colliding too fast to form clean words. Because this involves Daniel. Marcus didn't react to the name. Not outwardly. I know, he said. That answer landed wrong. Too calm, too certain. Claire took another step closer. You know? Marcus reached for the phone the foreman handed him, glancing at the screen briefly before answering. Marcus Hale. There was a pause. Claire couldn't hear the voice on the other end, but she didn't need to. She could see it in Marcus's posture. The shift was subtle, but real, controlled, measured. The way someone spoke when the conversation mattered. I'm aware of your position, Marcus said. But that doesn't change the structure. Another pause. Claire watched him closely now, every detail sharp. You've been operating on assumptions, Marcus continued. That's not the same as leverage. His voice stayed low, even. But the weight behind it was different from anything she had ever heard from him before. Not quiet, not passive. Decisive. Claire felt something inside her chest tighten. Because this wasn't the man she had left. Marcus listened again, his eyes shifting briefly toward the structure behind Claire, then back. No, he said. The land isn't available. The words landed like a closed door. Claire's breath caught. On the other end, the response must have been immediate. Marcus didn't interrupt. He let it play out. Then calmly, you should have confirmed that before you started building your projections around it. Another pause. Longer this time. Claire's mind raced. Projections. Land. Everything Daniel had shown her at lunch. Everything he had said was already in motion. Marcus's voice cut through again. "I'm not here to negotiate under pressure," he said. "If you want to restructure your position, you can do it through the proper channels." Claire's heart was beating faster now, because she knew exactly how Daniel handled pressure. And this was not how he expected things to go. Marcus's tone didn't change. "But understand something," he added. "You're not dealing with a gap in information anymore. You're dealing with a fixed position." Silence. "Then I'll have my office coordinate with yours," Marcus said. "That's the only path forward." He ended the call just like that. No hesitation, no second thought. He handed the phone back without looking at it again. Claire stared at him. "What was that?" she asked. Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked past her, scanning the structure again as if nothing had changed. "Asking for something they don't have," he said finally. Claire shook her head. "No, that wasn't just a call." Marcus turned back to her. "It was business." "Your business?" she pressed. Marcus held her gaze. "Yes." That word hit harder than everything else. Claire felt it land in her chest, heavy and undeniable. "You just told him no," she said slowly. "You told Daniel no." Marcus didn't correct her, didn't soften it, didn't explain it away. Claire let out a short breath, her mind trying to catch up. "He said he had access," she said. "He showed me plans, projections. He built those on assumptions," Mark said. Claire's voice sharpened. "You knew that?" "Yes." "And you didn't say anything?" Marcus's expression didn't change. "You didn't ask." The words landed exactly where they needed to. Claire stepped back slightly, like something physical had pushed her. "That's not fair," she said. Marcus didn't move. "No," he agreed. "It's not." But there was no apology in it, just acknowledgement. Claire looked at him differently now. Not as the man she had outgrown, but as someone she had never actually understood. "And this whole time," she said quieter now, "you were, what, watching?" "I was working," Marcus said. "That's not the same thing. It is for me." Claire shook her head again, more slowly this time. Her certainty was gone. In its place was something unstable. "Daniel thinks he's building something," she said. "He thinks he's about to close a deal that changes everything." Marcus's gaze didn't shift, he said. Claire swallowed. "And you're just going to let that happen?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment before answering. "I'm not responsible for his assumptions." The answer was simple and final. Claire turned away, pacing a few steps across the uneven ground, trying to steady herself. This wasn't just about Marcus anymore. This was about everything she had chosen. Everything she had believed. She stopped, turning back to him. "He's going to find out," she said. "Daniel's not going to just walk away from something like this. I know, and when he does," she continued, "he's going to want answers." Marcus nodded once. "He'll get them." Claire's chest tightened again. "From you?" Marcus didn't answer. Because he didn't need to. A loud noise echoed from the far side of the site, metal shifting, a call from one of the workers, but neither of them looked away. Claire felt it now. The gap between what she thought she had stepped into and what was actually happening. "You could have told me," she said, almost under her breath. Marcus's expression softened just slightly. "I showed you," he said. Claire shook her head. "No, you didn't." "I did," he said. "You just didn't see it." The words stayed with her, because deep down she knew they were hand. She looked down. Daniel calling. Claire stared at the screen. For a second, she didn't move. Then she answered. "Claire," Daniel's voice came through tighter than she had ever heard it. "We need to talk." She glanced at Marcus. He didn't react. "About what?" she asked. A brief silence. Then, "About the land," Daniel said. "About whoever just shut the door on my entire project." Claire's grip tightened on the phone. "And?" she asked. Another pause, longer this time. "I think," Daniel said, slowly, "that it might be connected to you." Claire froze. Her eyes lifted back to Marcus, and for the first time she realized she wasn't standing between two men. She was standing between two versions of the truth, and one of them was about to collapse. Claire didn't answer right away. She stood there in the middle of the construction site, phone pressed to her ear, eyes locked on Marcus. "I think it might be connected to you." Daniel's words echoed in her head. "Connected to you." Her throat tightened. "What do you mean?" she asked finally. On the other end, Daniel exhaled sharply. "I mean, the timing doesn't make sense. We've been working this deal for over a year. Everything was lined up. Then suddenly, someone steps in, shuts down access, and no one knows who it is. Claire's grip on the phone tightened. "And you think that's me?" she said. "I think," Daniel replied slowly, "you're closer to whatever this is than you're telling me." Claire glanced at Marcus again. He hadn't moved, hadn't interrupted, just watching her, waiting. "I don't know anything," she said, but the words didn't land the way they used to, not even to herself. Daniel was quiet for a second. Then lower, more controlled, "Claire, is there something you haven't told me?" That question hit differently now, because for the first time she wasn't sure what the answer was. "I'll call you back," she said, and ended the call before he could respond. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. Claire lowered the phone slowly. "He's starting to figure it out," she said. Marcus nodded once. He would. "That doesn't bother you?" she asked. "It changes nothing." Claire let out a short breath, somewhere between disbelief and frustration. "You just sit there and let everything unfold." Marcus looked at her steadily. "No," he said. "I make sure it unfolds correctly." The difference was subtle, but it was everything. Claire shook her head, pacing again, trying to process it. "You're telling me you've had control over all of this," she said, gesturing vaguely toward the city beyond the site. "This whole time?" "I've had responsibility," Marcus corrected. "That's not the same thing. It is when the outcome affects more than just you." Claire stopped. "That's what this is about," she said. "Responsibility?" Marcus didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer, not aggressive, not confrontational, just enough to close the distance between them. "This isn't about you leaving," he said. "Or him." "Then what is it about reality?" Marcus said. The word landed harder than anything else he had said so far. Claire felt it, because her version of reality was shifting faster than she could keep up with. "You knew," she said quietly. "About Daniel, about what he was trying to do." "Yes, and you let me walk into it anyway?" Marcus held her gaze. "You made your choice." Claire's voice rose slightly. "Without knowing the truth. You didn't ask for it." That again, the same answer, and it hit just as hard. Claire turned away, her chest tight, because she couldn't argue with that. Not honestly. Behind her, Marcus's phone buzzed again. He didn't look at it. Claire noticed anyway. "Are you going to answer that?" she asked. "No." "Why not?" "Because it can wait." Claire let out a quiet, incredulous breath. "Everything can wait for you." Marcus didn't respond, because that wasn't entirely true, but she wouldn't understand that yet. Claire turned back to him. "I need to know something," she said. Marcus nodded slightly. "This Hale Holdings," she continued. "This trust, these properties, how much of it is actually yours?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "All of it that matters." The answer was simple. Too simple. Claire's mind struggled to process it. "That doesn't make sense," she said. "You live like what?" The question cut clean. Claire stopped, because she didn't have a word that didn't sound wrong now. "Like someone who doesn't have options," she finished, weaker than she intended. Marcus nodded once. "I had options." "Then why?" "Because I wanted to know who I was building a life with," he said. The words hit deeper than anything else. Claire went still. "That's not fair," she said again, but there was no force behind it this time. Marcus's expression softened, just slightly. "It wasn't supposed to be a test," he said. "It was supposed to be obvious." Claire felt something crack, small but real, because it should have been. But she had been looking at something else. Something louder, flashier, easier to measure. Now she asked quietly. Marcus didn't horsey and answer immediately. Instead, he looked past still being done. "Now," he said, "we finish what's already in motion." Claire swallowed. And me?" she asked. Marcus looked back at her. "You already made your decision," he said. "No anger, no bitterness, just truth." Claire felt it settle in her chest, heavy and final. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she didn't hesitate. She looked. Daniel again. But this time, there was something else. A second notification. From her company, urgent internal update, Meridian review escalation. Claire frowned, opening it immediately. The message was short. Executive review required, ownership verification in progress. External claim under investigation. Her breath caught. External claim. Her eyes lifted slowly to Marcus. "What did you do?" she asked. Marcus didn't react. "I confirmed what was already true," he said. Claire's pulse surged. "You're challenging his entire project." "I'm correcting it." The difference mattered, and she could feel it now. Behind them, another worker approached, hesitant but firm. "Mr. Hale," he said, "there's a legal team on site. They're asking for you." Said it's regarding cross-development. Claire turned sharply. A black car had pulled up near the entrance. Two men in suits stepped out. Not construction, not local management. Something else, something formal, something serious. Claire's chest tightened again. "They're moving fast," she said. Marcus nodded. "They have to." "Why?" Marcus looked at her one last time before turning toward the entrance. "Because they're running out of time to fix what they broke," he said. Claire watched as he walked toward the men, steady, unhurried, like he wasn't being approached but expected. And for the first time, she realized the truth wasn't just catching up to her. It was already ahead of everyone else, waiting. And it had Marcus's name on it. Claire didn't follow Marcus right away. He stayed where she was, near the edge of the site, watching as he approached the two men in suits. There was no hesitation in his steps, no shift in posture. He didn't look like someone being summoned. He looked like someone expected. The taller of the two men spoke first. Claire couldn't hear the words, but she saw the way his shoulders straightened, the way his tone shifted. Respect, immediate and unmistakable. Marcus nodded once, then reached for the folder one of them held out. Claire's chest tightened. Legal. Of course it was legal. Everything about this had become legal. She took a step forward before she even realized she was moving. She needed to hear this. Needed to understand what she had just walked away from. By the time she got close enough, Marcus was already flipping through the documents, his expression unreadable. Formal notice regarding cross-development. One of the men was saying, "We've confirmed multiple inconsistencies in declarations and financing disclosures." Marcus didn't react. "Next steps?" he asked, direct, controlled. Like this wasn't unexpected. The second man spoke this time. "Pending your authorization, we proceed with a temporary freeze on associated assets and a full audit." Claire's breath caught. Freeze, audit. These weren't suggestions. These were decisions. And they were waiting on him. She stepped closer. "Marcus," she said, her voice tighter than she intended. All three men looked at her. The two lawyers, because that's what they were, she realized now, took a quick glance at Marcus before stepping back slightly, giving him space, giving him control. Claire felt it again. That shift. That invisible line she hadn't seen before. "What's going on?" she asked. Marcus closed the folder. "That's not what this is," she snapped. "They're talking about freezing assets." Marcus held her gaze. "Temporary." "That's Daniel's entire project," she said. "Yes." The answer came without hesitation. Claire felt her pulse spike. "You're going to destroy him?" "No," Marcus said evenly. "I'm going to stop him from damaging something he doesn't understand." Claire shook her head, disbelief flooding in. "You don't get to decide that. I already did." The words were quiet, but they landed harder than anything else. Claire stared at him, because for the first time she believed him. The lawyers shifted again, one of them glancing at his watch. "We'll need confirmation within the hour," he said carefully. Marcus nodded. "You'll have it." They stepped away, moving back toward the car, leaving the two of them standing in the middle of everything that had just changed. Claire let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. "You're serious?" she said. Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. Claire ran a hand through her hair, pacing again. "This isn't just business," she said. "This is personal now. It always was." She stopped. "What does that mean?" Marcus looked at her. "For you," he said, "it became personal when you chose him." Claire flinched slightly. "And for you," she asked, "it became personal when I realized how far you were willing to go without asking a single question." The words were calm, but they cut. Claire felt it, because he wasn't raising his voice. He wasn't trying to hurt her. He was just stating something she couldn't deny. "I thought I knew you," she said, quieter now. "You knew what you chose to see." That again, that same line, but this time it hit deeper. Claire swallowed, her eyes flicking toward the city skyline in the distance. "All those years," she said, almost to herself, "and you never said anything." Marcus's expression didn't change. "I didn't hide anything that affected your life." Claire let out a short, humorless laugh. "That's not true. It is." She turned back to him. "You owned buildings, companies. You controlled deals. I still came home to you," he said. The interruption stopped her cold. "I still showed up every day. I still built a life with you. None of that changed what we were supposed to be. Claire opened her mouth, then closed it, because for a moment she had nothing. Nothing that wasn't tangled up in the choices she had made. Behind them, the sound of construction continued. Metal, movement, voices, normal. Like nothing had shifted, but everything had. Claire's phone buzzed again. This time, she didn't hesitate. She opened it. Daniel, a message, 3 words. We have a problem. Stomach drop. Slug up, Marcus. Marcus, he knows, she said. Marcus didn't react. Or he's about to, she added. Marcus glanced toward the entrance, where the black car still sat, the lawyers waiting. He'll understand soon enough, he said, that you're behind this, that he built something on ground that wasn't his to stand on. Claire's chest tightened. This is going to ruin him. Marcus's voice stayed level. He made that possible. And me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper now. Marcus looked at her. Long enough that she felt it, long enough that she understood the answer before he said it. You decided where you stood, he said. Claire felt something break, quietly. Because this time there was no argument left. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Not Daniel. Her company, mandatory executive meeting. Immediate attendance required. Subject, Meridian property dispute. Claire's breath caught. Meridian. The building. Her building. The one she had worked in for years. The one, her eyes widened slightly as she looked at Marcus. You said you didn't hide anything that affected my life. Marcus didn't move. Claire's voice sharpened. That building, Meridian, who owns it? Marcus didn't answer right away, and that silence, that hesitation told her more than anything else. Her pulse surged. No, she said quietly. No, that's not possible. Marcus held her gaze. Claire felt the ground shift beneath her again. Tell me I'm wrong, she said. Marcus didn't. Claire took a step back, because suddenly, everything connected. Location, the lease terms, the decisions that never quite made sense, the approvals that always came from above, her entire career, her entire environment, her entire sense of control. It hadn't been hers, not really, her voice dropped. Marcus, what exactly do you own? Marcus looked at her, and for the first time, there was no distance left between the truth and the question. You'll find out, he said. Claire shook her head, panic and realization colliding. No, I need to know now. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it this time, just once. Then back at her. There's a meeting in 40 minutes, he said. Claire frowned. What meeting? Marcus turned toward the exit. The one that decides what happens next, he said. Claire stood frozen for half a second. Then her phone buzzed again. She looked down. A calendar notification. Emergency board session, Meridian Holdings. Her name was on the attendee list. So was her breath caught, Marcus Hale. Claire looked up sharply, but he was already walking away, and this time she didn't hesitate to follow. The boardroom didn't erupt. It shifted, quietly, decisively. By the time Claire left Meridian Holdings that afternoon, Daniel Cross was no longer in control of anything that mattered. The audit had expanded within hours. Investors pulled back. Lines of credit tightened. His name, once spoken with confidence in the city's development circles, became a liability no one wanted to carry. No one had to destroy him. The system corrected itself. Claire watched it happen from the inside, meetings stacked on meetings. Legal teams moving with careful precision. Not chaos, just consequences unfolding exactly where they should. And through all of it, Marcus never raised his voice. He didn't need to. He didn't sit at the head of the table either. That wasn't how he operated. But when decisions stalled, when uncertainty crept in, people looked at him anyway, waiting for direction, for approval, for the final word that didn't sound like power but always was. That was the part Claire couldn't ignore anymore, not the money, not the buildings, but the way the room adjusted around him, the way it always had. She resigned 2 days later. No announcement, no attempt to stay. Just a formal letter and a quiet exit from the life she had once fought so hard to climb into. The apartment Daniel had moved her into didn't last the week. The lease was tied to financing that no longer existed. By the time she packed her things, the illusion was already gone. No dramatic collapse, just emptiness where something had pretended to be solid. Claire didn't try to call Marcus again, not after the last conversation. Not after the way he had looked at her. Not with anger, but with clarity. That had been worse. Weeks passed. The city moved on. And then, one morning, Marcus Hale's name appeared publicly for the first time. Not in gossip, not in speculation, but in a press release tied to a new development project, a multi-use space in a part of the city that had been overlooked for years. Affordable commercial leases, long-term investment, community integration. His name wasn't emphasized. It didn't need to be. Anyone who mattered already understood what it meant. A powerful man stepping forward, not to prove anything, but because there was no longer a reason to stay hidden. Claire read the article twice, then a third time. Not for the details, but for the tone. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't defensive, it wasn't trying to rewrite anything. It was steady, like him. That was when it settled completely. She had never really seen him. Not when he came home tired and quiet. Not when he listened more than he spoke. Not when he chose simplicity over display. She had mistaken restraint for lack, and by the time she understood the difference, it was already gone. Claire didn't lose everything. She found another job weeks later. Small firm. Less prestige. More honesty than she expected. Her life didn't collapse. It just reset. Without the illusion. Without the shortcuts she thought she deserved. Without the man she had walked away from. One night, sitting alone in her new apartment, she opened her phone. Scrolled through old messages she had never deleted. There weren't many. Marcus had never been someone who filled silence with words. That used to frustrate her. Now it felt different. She stared at the empty message box for a long time, then finally typed, "I finally understand who you were." She read it once, then sent it. No follow-up, no apology wrapped in excuses, just the truth she had taken too long to reach. Miles away, Marcus's phone buzzed once on the desk beside him. He didn't check it immediately. He was reviewing site plans, discussing timelines with a project manager, who spoke to him with the same quiet respect Claire had once ignored. When the meeting ended, Marcus finally picked up his phone. Read the message, his expression didn't change, not cold, not satisfied. Just still. He set the phone back down without replying. Because some things didn't need an answer, not anymore. Outside, the city moved around him, loud and constant. Inside, everything was clear. He hadn't lost anything. He had simply stopped carrying what was never his to prove. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. If you've ever had to walk away from someone who never truly saw you, you understand what this kind of silence means. Let me know, would you have made the same choice, Marcus?